everyone. Thank you for attending the Real Estate Meets Crypto panel session. I'm Brandon Fugal. I'm chairman of Colliers International. We're the largest commercial real estate firm in the Intermountain West. We're the fastest growing in the world. We're the number one fastest growing of the big three globally in 68 countries, 500 offices, 17,000 professionals. I have 4 offices in Utah. I previously was the largest owner of Coldwell Banker commercial offices in the country. I had 30 offices until I terminated their sorry butts and merged with Colliers and pulled our Intermountain operation altogether. So we did last year in Utah over $3 billion in real estate transactions, which is a big deal. And especially since Salt Lake and Utah is more of a secondary market. So it's a privilege to be with our esteemed panel today. We're going to kind of move through this quickly. We're going to be a bit fluid, and if you're all interested, I want to reserve some time for Q&A. So ask us anything. Nothing. I want some hardball questions, really hard. None of these like lightweight softball questions. I say bring it on. Ask me anything you wish, but more importantly, our panel as well. And we'll get into the implications because the real estate space is about to be significantly transformed. It's going to be an incredible time to be alive and witness the next several years. So with that, I'll turn the time for introductions to the panel.
Absolutely. Is this on? All right. Perfect. My name's Dimitri. I'm the co-founder of Relium. We're a fractional real estate marketplace. I'm recognized. I stand as the Utah chair for the Foundation of International Blockchain and Real Estate Expertise. My research that I've published is recognized as Forbes. I'm under Forbes Under 30 Scholar for my research in this space, and we're launching this marketplace to be able to make real estate more accessible to everyone here.
Darcy, VanOren. I am the CEO of Estate Chain. We settle real estate transactions globally in cryptocurrency. We are an exchange. Beyond that, I got into crypto back in 2014, kind of early days. Proposed legislation in the state of Utah in 2015 to allow you to pay your state taxes in crypto, Bitcoin. The legislature didn't understand anything we said, and basically was like, we'll send that.
They still don't.
They still don't. But the good news is, here we are 7 years later. They've now since adopted similar legislation to what we proposed back in 2015. So they're just 7 years behind the curve. I guess not too bad. But in any case, been in this space a long time, real estate and blockchain. Excited about what's coming up and the opportunity to tokenize and democratize real estate and make it accessible to everybody around the world.
My name is Josh Pitts. I'm the founder of Shred Media. We're the world's #1 attention impact agency. We work with all the top lenders in the mortgage space, UWM, Rocket Mortgage. We do all their content and we do all their development behind the scenes of telling their story. I come from a mortgage background. I own one of the biggest mortgages companies here in Utah. You probably still see our billboards competing with Mike over at City Creek Mortgage. You'll see Integrity Lending. We are actually the ones that started that war. I'm sorry, I apologize, but that is my background, is in mortgage financing. I sit on some of the boards of the biggest mortgage companies in the country.
My name is Jeremy. I'm with Alta, and my background is in design and software development, building apps. I had a design studio in LA before I jumped into crypto. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to change the way that financing is done and allow people to finance real estate assets through cryptocurrencies and through these new assets.
Awesome. So you have great representation here from every really side and facet of the real estate community. First question for our panel. When are we actually going to see real estate transactions consistently executed with crypto? Because, and you call BS on what I'm about to say, but everything that I'm reading in the public domain right now, everyone's talking, even in the last 2 weeks, you pull up Forbes, Fortune magazine, and they're like, oh yeah, the next big thing is crypto and real estate, yet I'm not really seeing many actual transactions occurring with crypto. In fact, the only ones I'm seeing, and correct me if I'm wrong, are cash transactions. They're cash private transactions where people are literally just signing deeds over and trying to bypass the typical title escrow process. A lot of the transactions they're talking about in Miami, for example, where you have a flurry of crypto and real estate activity, people are a little bit deceiving, I think, in saying, "Oh yeah, we're executing the first deals in real estate with crypto," and I'm like, when I dig a little bit deeper and I call or I email, they say, "Well, we converted it to USD, and then we ultimately closed the transaction with dollars." I'm like, "Well, that's not a crypto deal. Yeah. What's the truth?"
So I have my take on it, and I'd love to hear your take. I think we have an awesome member of our board. He's deep in real estate, and he was explaining to me at some point where the genesis of titling came from in the U.S. Right? It all starts with titling, in my view. Right? Until you can get titling on chain, and you can eliminate, whether you're here with a title company or not, eliminate the title industry, and allow insurance to be done on chain. I think it's going to be a challenge. Right, and that,
in other
that
words,
titling
use blockchain
as the titling mechanism.
Yeah, as the chain
imagine
title.
or to make it simpler, the title for your car was on a blockchain, then it would be easy to transact in crypto and quickly transfer that title. And the titling that we have came from the Dutch. I think invented it in the 1600s, and it came through Australia, and it's run through the county system, and it's the government. It's going to take time, and that's. So
it's
I
government
think it's
and taxation related.
It's going to be a phased approach. It's 10 to 20 years, in my view.
Yeah, I want to. The thing that I see, and too, being in the mortgage side, we have such an archaic process when it comes to real estate, and especially mortgage, the mortgage transaction and how it's evolved. You look at the last 10, 12 years that I've been really in the industry, it's come so slow. Even the e-signing and e-closings has been around for a long time, but during COVID is when we really started to see it adopted. So we're so slow to adopt and actually make anything happen in this industry. It's discussions like this that are going to move the industry forward quicker. It's the minds that we have up here that are actually going to start making it happen.
So we do conduct these transactions. However, yes, we are converting primarily the situation as such. The buyer is sending me crypto, I'm exchanging it into fiat, and I'm transferring it in the US dollars in the US, if it's Mexico pesos, if it's India rupees, globally around the world into fiat. However, we could provide that exchange if you wanted me to exchange it, say, in a crypto to crypto transaction. Hey, you want to send Doge, but this person wants Bitcoin. The seller wants to receive in Bitcoin. But yes, truth be told, the transactions we are completing are all crypto to fiat. But the goal was to make this accessible to people to say, you can actually spend your crypto.
I think everyone in this room has a vision of what crypto and real estate will turn into. And we have this vision of democratization where we can have many people participating, where you have ability for more freedom of financing. Those mechanisms today are not enabled with the current practices that we have in place as described. We have to do these workarounds in order to make it possible. What this team of people up here is designing and trying to build are these workarounds to enable you to do as quickly and as seamlessly as possible, use your crypto to transact. But as described above, there are these workarounds that are required at the moment.
Would you say it has to be federal, state, municipal level? Because it really does start with the titling and the taxing process. By the way, any of you that are not as familiar with the title industry that would be severely disrupted by a shift to blockchain, last year, $26.2 billion in policies were written on title transactions. So it's a big industry. It's not going to go away quietly.
For me, I'm here to partner with the ecosystem, right? I come in peace to title companies. I am your friend. I'm here to help you make these transactions happen. And we can go through the typical process of underwriting and establishing what the encumbrances are. So I personally don't think we're going to eliminate title for a very long time, if ever, potentially. But the goal here is to make these transactions easier to accept, easier to understand as I'm reaching out to, all the real estate agents, to title companies, and making that available to them. A phase 2 for our platform is to do a recording title function. Now, once again, I can go ahead and roll out that platform on Solana and record title, but the issue is, unless we have government validating that title, it's merely just out there in the ether system, right? And the goal is to get title company to actually get them on board so we can get counties on board. But the problem is, once again, it is county by county. We've got over 3,000 counties across the country. You know, that is a nightmare. I don't know if anybody here has ever done work trying to get a federal contract, a state contract, a county contract. Very, very difficult process. So we've actually, there's been a number of, like Medici, for example. They went ahead and launched 2 counties in Wyoming. I understand they're not currently still recording, but they are looking towards New York right now. So we're all crossing our fingers and hoping that comes to fruition. But yes. Yep. Yep. Exactly. And they're not recognizing, they're not relying solely on it. And so until we get to a place where the biggest issue here is that we have paper documents, you guys, and that's across the United States, and that's absolutely across the entire world. And I mean, when you look at places like Hurricane Katrina happened, you had all those records went underwater. It took the better part of a decade for some people to prove that they owned property right there in the New Orleans area. For example, what Medici's also doing in Zambia is they're literally going door to door, getting people's house information, recording it, digitizing it, and then proceeding from there. So we do have an uphill battle when it comes to title. We're not going to, so just so you know, if you own a title company, you're going to be fined for a very, very long time. But the goal is to get there.
I would disagree. I think it's like you own a fax company, a fax machine company. Email comes out, and you're like, shit, it can't send attachments, right? But then one day you wake up, and you're out of business, right? I think the shift is going to happen that fast. And I think when someone creates an amazing blockchain that handles the titling, and then they go to these counties and they say, it's not going to cost you anything. You just use this system, and it has all these validators, and it just works, right? Like he said, it's going to be a phased approach, but when the flip happens, you call it the flippening or whatever, it's going to happen fast.
But there's big opposition, right?
100%.
I don't know if any of you seen Bill Gates' recent. Bill Gates, Elizabeth Warren, Warren Buffett. If any of you have seen what they've said as recent as the last few days, they're all trying to kill this new economy. Why? Because it kills their control system. The slavery ends.
But I think we all learned with COVID that we're really not interested in what Bill Gates has to say anymore. So the people, thank you Web3. Peer-to-peer is coming. Web3 is bringing and transforming the world and bringing the freedom we all wanted to see.
There's so much more to crypto than just Bitcoin, right? Like they're very against replacing the dollar, which makes sense, right? The dollar's pretty powerful even with inflation.
This whole point goes to what Darcy was saying in the beginning. She wants to partner with them. I want to go scorched earth and host them all. I'm just kind of kidding, but not.
I will take their dirty money, you guys.
No, but that's it.
And then I will quietly displace them. That's how it works, you guys.
That's why I love Darcy. But that's the thing, is sitting on these boards, being a part of these executive decisions that are happening with the CFPB, with the regulatory services, there's things that are happening that we actually need a little bit of buy-in from that side, and we actually need a little bit of that regulation to help with it. But then, guys, and with us, we can come in and help change that game. I promise you, we've been in enough boardrooms and discussions that it's not going to happen with a little bit of buy-in and a little bit of like support from that side.
Keep your enemies close, you guys.
Exactly.
This is how we win.
Yep.
This is how blockchain wins the day. So I feel like what happened with the Ron Paul movement is Ron Paul in 2012, I worked on his presidential campaign. So I'm a Ron Pauler in 2012. And we walked away from Ron Paul and we got into crypto. And that's where all the libertarians went. And that's what we've been busy doing, is making disruptive technology. And so don't get worried about where we are. We've all stayed through these crypto winters and this concern. And during that time, that's when you chop. That's when you build. And that's when Ethereum was developed. That's when OpenSea was developed. This is why we have so many amazing things coming in Web3. and you all get to be part of this revolution.
I was going to say, look at the room right now. Like the fact that this is the biggest, I know we're just getting started in the day, but look around the room. This just goes to say the biggest asset that most of us own, being our home, having leverage, being able to leverage equity, is the new future. Doing HELOCs, doing these things that are so archaic, that are expensive, that are timely. That bullshit's going away. And like, because you just look around the room right now, it's coming. It's because of these discussions, it's going to happen.
It is, but if any of you think that making an NFT out of a house plan and then calling that a real estate transaction which is what the media is leading you to believe right now, that's a bunch of baloney.
It's true. The media is conveying one mechanism that's happening, and they're fluffing it up and making it sound so amazing. And this is the panel of reality of like, we're telling you block to block what is happening and what is possible. And the reality is that we're dealing with laws made in the 1950s and 70s and even earlier with title that are completely limiting what we can do and the potential of what real estate will do in the future for all of us. The future of real estate is enabled for everybody. It's democratized, it's fractionalized, and it's allowed everyone in this room to own a piece of that and to reap the same rewards of that.
Just imagine if you could tokenize commercial real estate investments. If you could literally buy a piece of this building that we're sitting in and the income stream, and to be able to do it seamlessly without going through weeks and weeks of inspections and all the process, I think that's what you're going to see in the future. It's not coming easy, and it's nowhere near here.
Well, Brandon, that's just the beginning too, though. Commercial just starts it. How many of you own a home in here? Raise your hand if you own a home. What if you could leverage literally that asset? What if you could leverage the equity that you have in your home? Commercial properties is just the beginning. We need to have access to the biggest asset all of us want. The American dream that we talk about, being able to leverage that as an asset, is right around the corner.
And we're going to do this around the entire world. What people don't realize is that billions of people around the world don't even have bank accounts. Now, I'm not advocating for banks. I don't think having a bank account is the answer to create wealth. But for some people, that's a first step to just be able to house their funds somewhere, pull it, and then be able to invest. And so what you understand is that Web3 is about that peer-to-peer, removing unnecessary institutions such as banks and governments who've been holding us all back.
Well, and I think the future is unpredictable, right? I mean, I think the future is unpredictable. We don't know where this is going to go. In 20 years, there could be entirely new business models built.
There are.
You know,
there's
5
like,
years. But the point
in
is
the
there's a
last
period
30
of time-
seconds, more business models have been created through DeFi,
Right.
you guys.
Right, and when you talk about shared ownership and commercial assets, we don't. That could be so wildly different from how we see the world today. You know, but there are, like you said, the fundamental things that need to happen behind the scenes on the actual mechanics of the transactions to make this possible.
Well, the problem is the mortgage underwriting process, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. Call BS on me, please. But the mortgage underwriting and the titling process that most of the public has to go through does not accommodate.
Oh, it doesn't. But we are creating the mechanisms by which they can, right? Through my platform, we can KYC, we can establish proof of wealth.
How soon?
Well, we're already doing proof of wealth through my own company, so in KYC and AML. So people, I will establish people's proof of wealth of their crypto, so then we can actually move forward. Right now,
How soon before someone can actually, I can get on my wall and I can actually close a deal, execute on a real estate
5 years. Probably, I think 5 years.
you could.
I think sooner than
I mean,
that.
if you wanted to now, I mean, I have a Web3 website. If you want to send me crypto on my website, we could do that. It's all about contract law. If a buyer and seller decide this is how they wish to contract, and they're not worried about maybe what their lawyers are recommending, well, that's the
So what
problem.
if you remove the lender?
I work with mostly wealthy people. I mean, most people who are wealthy. I'm saying for the moment, right? For the moment, on my website, it's primarily people are transacting who are wealthy in crypto, right? It's not people who just bought Dogecoin,
Right.
aren't buying a house or a property free and clear in their crypto.
Yeah,
In the future, though, because of what we're building today, it's going to be available.
and that's just it. And that's what Darcy is referring to here. You know, the uber wealthy, those ones who have big bags or the big wallets right now are the only ones who are able to participate. But as Mountain America was talking about in there, we want to get this to everybody. All of us need access to this, and that's when we start to see the
Web3.
shift happen.
That's Web3.
Question from the back. Bring it on.
Well, proof of wealth comes from a lot of different ways, right? Primarily, people are sending me the proof of wealth showing I own this small business, I'm sending you my bank statements, so you see we've earned money. I'm showing you my P&L statements. All of that is showing their proof of wealth, if that's the source. Proof of wealth comes from all different places, right? Some people received it and it was passed down to them. Other people, have just had investments, in the stock market. So proof of wealth comes from, hundreds of places.
Do lenders recognize crypto as part of a valid enterprise?
Yes.
They're
Yes, they
starting
do.
to.
There are absolutely lenders within the country. We work with some of them that recognize it. Now, does it have to go through a process like Darcy? Like, what she is doing is absolutely brilliant because that's what lenders have recognized. If you're coming to them with Bitcoin or Doge or whatever it is a very limited basis on what they actually recognize. And you still have to, like a bank statement these days, you have to be able to prove that you have the assets. Now, the problem with it, because so many of these crypto and these stable coins are volatile, it's hard for them to be able to okay, so the contract is $100,000. Is that still $100,000 tomorrow when the contract is executed? So yes, they do recognize cryptocurrency as a source of value, but it's still as been mentioned, an imperfect process.
And
Correct.
agreed. And what I'm trying to create in this ecosystem is partnerships with the banks, with the title companies, and say, hey guys, we can show you how this process can be done easily without you guys having to understand and go to crypto school and us having to explain blockchain and all these other things. We're going to make it short, simple, sweet, so you guys can go ahead and have access to these customers who are wealthy in crypto.
Let's take another question from the audience. Bring it on. Who has a question?
I didn't catch what he said, the bundle of...
Well, that's the beauty of the NFT space right now, right? That's exactly what you can do. Everything, utilities, the projects, as was talked about on this last panel, utility, being able to group things like an experience, as you're talking about, that is the future of real estate in and of itself. Look at Airbnbs, look at Picasso, look at a few of these things that are starting to talk about trophy assets. That's actually, I stole that from my good friend Jeremy Ward here, talking about how we all want to build trophies, how we all want to have those things. And to your experiences, to whether it may be cars or this or that, the smart contract world opens that all up. We are just beginning. As mentioned, Scott on the stage, we're in the very first inning of this, grouping these things together, whether it's through title. I don't know if it will be through title. The future of title in and of itself will not be what it looks like today. Title is the recordization. Exactly. The blockchain, it was going to change this game completely.
Relative to the shift from fax to email, it's actually very important.
I mean, from a high level, it's a true technology shift. But were you asking?
Absolutely possible with
Technology.
Taxation is theft.
Yeah. So I think everyone here is learning pretty quickly. Maybe we probably already know, the government is perhaps the biggest inhibitor to this fundamental
The
shift.
government is why we can't have nice things, you guys.
Yeah.
So this is why we have the revolution of
They
Web3.
move slow, right?
It's about eliminating government, eliminating unnecessary banks and other places, and going more peer-to-peer. And in a trustless environment, we can do that through blockchain, through smart contracts.
Yeah, so from a legal perspective, in my view, that's an unpredictable answer, right? We can't predict how fast the government's going to pivot and adjust. Now, luckily, we live in a republic where, we have 50 states competing, and it works really well. You've got Wyoming kicking ass, trying to push things forward. Then all these other states say, hey, we want to be a part of this. So I think that's going to help things move faster than in, maybe governments that are outside the United States.
The Utah ecosystem, I think we have a magic moment right now in Utah to actually take a leadership position. We've missed every other revolution. I mean, and name one company that is headquartered in Utah, that you can go anywhere on the planet and people, it is a recognizable name brand, iconic entity. And I think with Web3,
Utah Jazz.
we're not headquarters here, though. And That's the problem. It's the most powerful network on the planet.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's a nonprofit.
Sorry, NFTing Temple recommends you wait. You wait.
And this is all about a business opportunity. What all of you don't know is that you've been brought here so we can show you an opportunity that will bring you financial freedom so you can really focus on your family.
Well, I wanted to address a point of that question that was just asked. What's really interesting when we look at real estate as such a highly regulated space is the more we democratize it, the more it starts to look like a security. And now you're up against laws that are even more restricting and more difficult than the mortgage industry already provides. Like if you're worried about credit or qualifying for a house for lending, talk about being only being able to invest in an asset that's too risky deemed by the United States and that you have to require that are accredited investors only. So my response to that would be that when we start to branch out to these smart contracts, it starts to look a lot more like securities law. And that's even more dicey and like not anything we want to deal with. So that's what's so hard about this is finding that route and that navigation.
It's coming. It's all
No, it is here. There is a regulatory environment that allows us to have retail investors involved. Yes, we have to get approvals through FINRA. Yes, we have to get approvals through the SEC, but things can be done. And especially when you go the accredited investor route first, the secondary market is when everything changes. And that's when the retail investors show up, and that's when we can tokenize real estate, and it can be sold on the retail market to everybody who is just, all they have to do at that point is still KYC. And if they KYC, then we're golden, and that's when people from all around the world can then invest in pieces of real estate all around the world. And that's the moment, everybody. That's when we change the world, and that's when we allow for financial inclusion.
Great.
I think it's going to get
question.
wild.
That we're going to see it. So we're not like right now we have
in a
like what?
non-stable perspective, right? What makes
Yeah.
real estate stable is the difficulty of the transactions, right? Transferring a building ownership takes months or whatever the time period is, right? Yeah, you securitize all those and throw those on Wall Street. Shit, we're going to have a lot of booms and busts.
Well, you look at how much value is created with digital assets and NFTs. What do you think if the Bored Ape, even though it's $162,000 today,
Yeah.
down from what the average is 450 some odd thousand, if the Bored Ape NFT is going for that, what is my Picasso worth if you digitize it? I mean, if you actually create, if you match utility with this new approach, it's going to be. I think the answer is the value it's going to create is off the charts.
What we
Right.
can say is there
Yeah.
will for sure be a different value because right now we have this Zestimate number where everyone thinks that their house is valued at some number based on these comps and all that. But there's a much different number when it's liquid, and we have the ability to see a liquid asset versus an illiquid asset and what the yield of that asset is. The economic question that my platform that we're building is trying to answer is what is that number? What would it look like if we had liquid real estate that you can trade in and out of at any time at institutional level volumes? If you can invest in fractional real estate and be able to participate in that, what would that asset be like and how valuable would it be to end users?
Think about crowdfunding an apartment building. Sure. I mean, crowdfunding really anything. But this is what we're looking at, and an opportunity that allows people from all around the world who previously may not even had access to bank accounts can now play in this space and earn true wealth.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing that to Dimitri's point as well. Right now we have the Zestants, you have the Redfins, you have some of these that are controlling. They're the ones who actually control the value of what real estate technically is. So many of us think it's based on something else, but these are the ones who create it. Again, have sat in these meetings with these companies. That's ultimately who creates it. It's not us. The consumers, we have no control over what the value of real estate is actually doing, other than what we're actually paying for, what is being told, or we're being told what the property or the value of that property is.
I think we know full well in Utah we have no control over the value of real estate. So,
To a point, absolutely. Oh my gosh, so Darcy and I 100% agree on this. You have to ask, like, there's a certain extent, and I know all of us being DeFi, like you don't want permission, but in this space in particular, you have to. If you're not asking, and if you're not working with the regulatory services, because they own trillions of dollars of assets, they control everything. Now, with that being said, is as these discussions, as these platforms continue to grow, as we work together, we're going to open up doors, and we will be like, keep your enemies close. I love what Darcy said. As we keep those enemies close, and again, as we're sitting in these board meetings and we're having these discussions, we're making friends with the right people. Then all of a sudden, once we have the permission, if you will, of what we need, it's all us, baby.
Look, I don't look good in orange, you guys.
Whoa. Let's
right? So,
Yeah.
so
Let's
I'm not
be
going to
careful
jail
on that
for
one.
anybody, but I'm just saying you have to work through a certain regulatory, and given that state.
I think the greatest thing about crypto is you're seeing this mass movement pushing against regulatory to the point where you have federal senators getting on board. And now I feel like people like the SEC are actually having to take a step back. You know, they sued Ripple, and I don't think they saw the amount of backlash that they were going to get, to the point where I feel like the standard, they've lost a lot of credibility, I feel like, as the protector of investor
Government
rights.
doesn't have any credibility for me, but they have force. And so that's only
Right,
the time
but what
in
I'm
which
saying is I feel
you
like
decide.
that lack of credibility will lead to a change in structure, right? There will probably be the Crypto Exchange Act of 2023 or something, right, that will create a new entity to regulate crypto, that will create a framework that will allow us to operate, because I feel like there's so much buy-in now across all demographics.
With this asset class being as big as it is, there needs to be someone that's going to act like that Uber, that's going to
Yes.
force regulation to be made around that.
This is
That's
the point.
the answer.
This is the point that Dimitri's making, is because, again, you look at crypto, like how many people actually have crypto wallets right now? The number is so there's such a small amount. Yes, we're growing in leaps and bounds, but look at the world of the CFPB. Look at how many homeowners there are in the world. How many ideas and how many people are controlled by that side, by the regulatory agencies. We, again, these discussions, us as a group, as we educate, and with Realium and some of the organizations we're putting together, really educating the general populace on how they can unlock the greatest asset they've ever had. That is the biggest project that we have on our hands, is being able to educate everybody else. And it's all of our positions, all of our jobs within here to do it.
Okay, you're next in a minute. You. Whose shirt? Me. Yes. Principal reduction.
So that's our wheelhouse, right? Yeah. So sorry, go ahead. So, maybe my intro might not have been as descriptive of what we do. So we are yeah. So at Alta, we're trying to bring institutional class, multifamily, build-to-rent neighborhood asset classes. We're trying to bring that yield to DeFi. It's kind of our first product, right? We have future products we want to bring that are more beneficial to you, let's say as a syndicator or as an operator. And the concept is that you would be able to syndicate using crypto instead of using traditional methods. And then if you can tap into a global capital source, right, it drastically reduces your cost of capital, operational overhead, investor maintenance, all of those things that are very time consuming for anyone in the multifamily space.
Because you tokenize an apartment building.
100%, you can get there. You have to have a plan to get there. We have a path. We believe we can do that, right? As far as the tax benefits, though, we've been struggling to try to figure out how, as an owner, you can benefit from depreciation. Right now at Alta, we as a company get the benefit of that because we're basically owning the assets, right, and pushing that yield back onto. No, they're not investors. They're note holders, right? It's a yield product, right?
So I'd love to address
So-
this question. So our platform, what we do, we have a master series LLC. We acquire an asset in a series LLC, split it into thousands of shares, sell those. When I say shares, that they're really tokens. The reason they're tokens is that way we can kind of get a little bit around the securities law. And what we, in my mind, real estate is two things. When you understand this asset class, it's leverage and it's tax benefits. That's what separates real estate from every other investment vehicle. And so we can introduce leverage by allowing these DeFi protocols, and we can introduce tax benefits because our users, they're not token holders, like they're token holders, but what they really are part members of LLCs. And so we can pass along these depreciation to our members through a Schedule K1 or 1099.
But that's a stopgap, right?
Right.
It's not the future. It's a stopgap.
That's what
It's
we
not,
can do.
you're not creating liquidity pools of real estate
No,
assets.
no. But
like
that's what we
Uniswap.
can do right now, and that's what's hard is like creating
Yeah.
these liquidity pools, but also providing leverage and these
Yeah.
tax benefits because like those are kind of opposite.
I think it will get there
Right.
pretty quickly, and I think it will be done through DeFi, through some sort of liquidity pool mechanism like Uniswap,
Yeah.
where you can enter and exit. It probably something more like Bancor, where there's like a centralized token
Right.
that everyone kind of transfers through. I'm getting into the weeds here, so if that,
Okay, question in the back.
yeah.
Life insurance. Yeah, it's Wild West. It's like 1883.
Agreed. So I think the important point that we're making is we're actually offering you crypto asset-backed crypto. I mean, that's really the goal here and the idea behind tokenizing anything. So instead of just saying, hey, just go buy a bunch of cryptocurrency, you know, when you get asset-backed crypto, we're in a whole new world, and it's just the beginning. Well, for right now, when people talk about purchasing a property as an NFT, what really has happened is that they have established it as that property as an LLC or a trust, and they then have sold, in essence, they've sold the equity in it, or they've sold tokens of it, or the entire LLC to a new person, an entity, and that's what's getting recorded with the recorder's office is that actual LLC.
So what's interesting about this is like we start looking at token protocols and what those different tokens allow. And in my opinion, when we're combining like DeFi and real estate and Web3, what we're looking at is a token that provides like KYC, whitelisting, and we become the custodian of that token. So as the custodian, we're able to refund a user based on, we know the fact that we've recorded on the chain is mutable, we know that they have the asset, we can, if they lose their wallet, we can refund that or like reinstitute that asset on there. We have to look at the smart contracts, and that's what their design is, to protect the users.
And it's not going to completely eliminate, like titling. It's not going to eliminate title insurance. You're still going to need some level of insurance on those transactions, right? It's just going to change the way in how it's done. It might eliminate the title industry from an underlying perspective. You don't need to hire a titling company. You could just pay for title insurance, maybe on chain, right? And that's just an example to try to answer. You may
That's
want
a whole
to for
Pandora's box right there.
Yeah.
Because to your question right now, what makes you
Great
think
question,
that your
but-
house is securitized other than a piece of paper that's at the recorder's office? Like that is the current system that we have. Thus, why Darcy and what we're talking about here, the process that is currently in place has been in long because we have begun to trust it. That's what we trust. So that's why, again, the discussions that are happening, the technology that is happening, the security of it is becoming even more and more. Again, going back to tokenization, as Dimitri has said, there's protocols put in place. There's a lot more securitization, and that's why working with the regulators and looking at the current process and how it's been set up is really important to the future of the industry as well.
Okay, two quick. You and then you.
Darcy's got a really important call.
Go ahead, you guys, continue.
Are you talking about like sandbox type virtual property or?
I mean, that's a great concept. I don't know how you stop it. It's pretty funny though to think about, right? Someone, yeah. Yeah.
I don't have an answer for that one.
Digital security guards, right? I mean,
I think that's the funnest part of this all is like there are things like that are going to come up that we learn along the way that none of us could answer right now. It's not even possible, but it is kind of fun to laugh about and think about.
Yeah, so let's talk about, so this is my point about securitization. The more you split something into a share, it looks like an investment contract. So the SEC regulates under Howey, which is 1950s laws, and then we're starting to look like, how can we navigate this looking like a security? And so you can either go around and say, okay, my members have such an interest in this asset and perform so much work in this asset that the revenue created is not through the investment of others, it's an active investment. So in my opinion, the only way to get around that is if you do split into shares and it does have an income producing asset, is to have the members perform enough work to make it. Yeah, exact. Potentially.
still
And for
may not work though.
yeah,
I mean,
and
yes.
it's great. So
SEC is intent. That's how they regulate.
so for real,
It's been going on for the last almost 2 years.
right. And
XPR.
for that real estate, it could look like maybe like a DAO, that, for example, and the token holders of the asset could vote on how often do we want to increase rents, what would we do for repairs and
It's
maintenance.
going to require the brave people willing to put themselves out there, like
Yeah.
Ripple, fight the battles, and push this regulation forward. Now, got a lot of people on our side: Coinbase, Binance, FTX. All those guys have been Binancing, or sorry, not Binancing. They've been lobbying heavily in Congress, right? Trying to move this forward, trying to create a new framework. It will happen. But until then, yeah, you're going to be in that murky water, and you're going to have the confidence to move forward and say, you know, what we're trying to do is good, and we're trying to follow the laws, but we're also trying to find a new way to do it.
So the quick follow-up question is,
Depends on how nice of a restaurant
yeah.
you're talking.
Yeah.
I'm into
Listen,
Bruce Chris.
there's three types of securities. There's registered securities, there's illegal securities, and there's exempt securities. And earlier we talked about exempt securities, making it illegal for retail investors. The capped at that of what we could offer on our platform is $75 million of assets a year. So we can offer retail investors, but we're capped at $75 million a year. So what's legally playable right now, if you claim you are a security, is so limited that the only way to move forward with this big of an asset class is to say, you're not a security, let's figure out how we can prove that we're not a security, and let's build real estate like that.
Or just move to the Bahamas, the DARE Act, and go do that thing.
They're having these conversations in Congress.
Right. We're in real time right now trying to figure this out. The SEC has some digital asset things that they've pushed out, but nothing that's clarifying enough for us as real estate.
Well, it's a competition. SEC, CFTC, IRS,
Right.
whatever the current president is,
Right.
you know.
well, and we're so politically divided. It's tough. More questions?
But even in the Bahamas, going to that question later, we started looking at outside, like international real estate. There's still tax implications. There's still SEC, depending on your investment, depending on the size, things like that. You're still
Transaction, but when you're talking securities law,
Absolutely.
Bahamas is like you're golden.
You bet. That's why, like, Relium and their team and what's being worked on there, the SEC route is the most complicated and most complex way. Like, we don't want to work with the SEC. If we can absolutely avoid it, it's going to be the best for everybody. Because, again, as being in the mortgage world as long as I have, there are always gray areas. There are always opportunities to bend and to make
As a
black and white look
libertarian, like,
gray.
we're sitting around just like, you know, saying, oh, please, SEC, let us do this. You know, at some point as citizens, we got to push back a little bit and say, this is what we want. right? And I think that's what crypto has done, is all these people have said, hey, we appreciate your intent to protect us, but we want to be able to do this. You know, and you know, I'm not saying that they're not going to fight back, but I think that's where we're going.
Sure. Josh. Dimitri.
Hi. Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, so the last 6 months of our project, to a little bit of background of our project, we were a thesis project that we published, and then we built out this incredible platform that allows people to invest in fractional real estate. We have a tokenization process, all this stuff, and then we're like, let's turn it on. Then we realized that we're totally security and we can't turn it on. And so we have to like, okay, how can we get around this? How can we turn this on? Who do we need to talk to? So we spent the last 6 months talking to securities lawyers at the SEC and everywhere to try to find out, can we market this product as not a security? And what are our ways to get around that? And so that's where we're currently navigating and trying to figure out that last step of it. And it comes down to like, can we fail the Howey test? And that's the only way to move forward for us. Yeah.
There are also tax implications that people don't recognize. So even if you could transact business, and you guys can call BS on me, but if I was to go buy a $500,000 piece of real estate today with Bitcoin, and my basis in that Bitcoin was $100,000, the second I close on that property, I have $400,000 of taxable gain that I'm hit with. Correct?
Yeah.
And that's something that has to be navigated carefully. The tax implications are serious, really, really serious.
So we yeah, that's loaded.
Here's the thing. We are not up here to give tax advice.
No.
What we can recommend is two great vendors that are locally Utah-based, TaxBit and MoonTax. Talk to them. We're not here to give you guys any kind of taxation theft advice at all.
And when it comes to regulatory, I've been working very closely with the CFPB themselves and the regulatory agencies who actually wrote the laws of mortgage. Going back to the Howey law, when it goes to the SEC, we've had a lot of discussions with them in regards to what CFPB regulatory and on the board. We can't say the names exactly, but just know this, and I've found with these discussions, they're way more, they understand where the world of blockchain is coming from. They understand, and they are actually open to it. One of our largest largest clients is literally rolling out a product right now that they understand that this is the future of it. And so with these talks, again, back to Darcy's point that we've said over and over, you have to keep your enemies close for a certain time. Once we actually gain that trust and understand
And their
that Dimitri,
money.
yeah, and their money,
Then we
to
can-
Dimitri's point, there's a time where you flip the switch and it's like, okay, do you ask for forgiveness or do you ask for permission, or where do you go with that? But
At
with
some point, the inflection point is when the old approach is rendered so obsolete,
And help them write the laws.
when there's no value in the process.
well, and is exactly. When it comes to adoption as well, there comes a tipping point of when we, as you know, as the DeFi generation, once we have enough say, once we have enough influence within that space, then they can't stop us. They can't turn their heads any longer.
And this is why we stay involved with associations that do lobby. At the local level, I'm involved with the Utah Blockchain Association. And so it's important for me to have my voice heard. I've been up working on policy in Utah since 2009. Helped pass Utah's Legal Tender Act, where we monetize gold and silver as currency. And so to me, that's important, to have your hand on the regulatory pulse and talk to these decision makers and let them know what you want to see happen, and talk about like a regulatory sandbox and figure out, hey, what can we do that's not yet defined, and stay within this space, and let them know, if, hey, you want to attract more businesses to Utah, let's exceed what Wyoming has done and make regulatory clarity, so we're adding to our laws that say and can include crypto, as form of payment. These are the kind of things we want to add to Utah laws. So this is how we win, and we will win.
I think we're about done. Was this useful? Yes.